Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of Tales of Citizens right here on the Sound Strategy Network. I am Bridger, I'll be your host for today. We have got a great show for you. Glad you got a hold of the program, however you may have found it. Tell a friend or two, won't you? Today we're talking about AC 1.0. That's right, Arena Commander 1.0 and our real justifiable concerns. Not those ones that we lampooned last week. That was actually... it was fun, but it wasn't really constructive, was it? So this week we're going to take a look at what we think might be actual concerns that are really concerning to us and not things that are just, jokes. So thank you all for joining me. As always, I've got my good co-hosts here with me. On my right, we've got Calathulu. Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir.
Hello, all.
I mute you guys to make sure nothing goes wrong. And then something, but that way it's on me.
Every time, Bridger.
It's on
Every
me.
time.
Also, on to the left here, we have Gray. Welcome.
How's it going?
Not bad, not bad. So, we have a great big show for today. We're going to jump right into it. The first thing that we always do every show is we start with a segment we call Life in the Verse, where each of us goes over, well, if the game were out, this would be the segment where we go through what we've done this week and explored and what kind of new stuff we found and if we had any cool stories about having to kill pirates or whatever. But since we don't really have too much of the game yet and we're about to talk about Arena Commander for like 25 minutes, let's start with, what have you guys been doing this past couple weeks? Callie, what's been going on with you?
Well, they released War Machine Tactics, so I've been playing around with that a little bit. If you've not tried it, that's a real-time strategy game done in the Privateer Press, based in Seattle there, Gray. Privateer Press, or Bellevue, I'm sorry. Universe that you have warjacks, you command them. It's a turn-based strategy, not quite real-time, but it's done up in the same style. Awesome little game. I recommend it. Other than that, I was a Kickstarter way back in the day, and I'm a huge fan of that genre and that world. Aside from that, I've started rock climbing, so that's a good time. My fingers do hurt like you wouldn't believe, and I'll be doing that right after the show. So let's finish this one on time today. And the final thing on there is continue my Zombies Run escapades. One of these days I will link to my base, and everyone can look at it to an idiot I am, but there you go.
I did go and pick up Zombies Run. Now tell me...
Yes!
What do you need to do? Like, in between your runs, do things attack your base?
They do, as a matter of fact. You will get little notifications saying zombies have attacked, and the more you built your base out, and I'll admit, since the first run, and I'm almost at Season 2 at this point, since the first run, I have not actually built my base out at all. So my base is looking rather anemic at the moment, but I've got all kinds of stockpiled crap, so we're good to go. But yeah, That's the whole point of it. You run, you get your supplies, you get everything you can build with, and then you build your base out. That's the game.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm getting some people saying that Twitch is blacked out for them for some reason. I'm going to try to get that fixed for you right now. I'm restarting the stream, and we'll see if that helps. But our main recording here on YouTube is still going, so we're going to hop back into it here. Gray, what have you been up to recently?
Basically hanging out for Christmas. Not a whole lot special going on with that, though I did get an awesome ski helmet, so that'll do nicely. Interesting to hear on the rock climbing. Been there, done that. Turned all my limbs around backwards and decided I should probably cut that out for a while. For those who are not aware, I am actually Gumby.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Yeah, all turns backwards.
That ain't right.
Not right at all. Other than that, a little bit of Smite, of all things. That's actually been kind of enjoyable lately. The actual lack of people talking gives it a slight edge over League of Legends during the holidays.
Wait a minute. Chat? There's no chat in Smite? I could have sworn there was chat when I played.
There's no all chat.
Oh.
There's only your own team's chat, which you can click mute once, and it works.
Well,
Perfect.
Yeah, you're right. One of the things I do wish that League had is the ability to mute people permanently. Like, I want to mute them, and then it remembers that I muted them forever, and
Ignore them.
preferably never matches me with them again. That would also be great.
I used to think that League would not match you with people if you had them ignored. And I had an ignore list well over 2,000 people because of it. It was wonderful. Wow. I never ran into them until about 4 months ago. And then I ran into a person the game after I muted them. I blocked them. The next game, I was stuck playing with the butthead again.
Well, with millions of people, it was probably just confirmation bias.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, what have I been up to? Well, last week we wanted to jump back into the show and talk all about Star Citizen because there was some exciting news. Well, not last week, 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago. Sorry about the delay, by the way. We can blame that on Callie as well. That's all his fault.
Oh, no.
What is it that you've got every other Sunday now?
I do a welding class.
A welding class. So we had to try and go opposite his welding class.
Nice.
It's the one skill I didn't pick up when I was a farm boy in Kentucky. So therefore, I've got to learn to weld now.
All right, so what I do want to show...
It's a great skill.
I can't imagine... If it was a zombie apocalypse, we'd want you on our team, right?
Well, I'm handy with an axe, I can weld, and I can run, so I think we're good.
There you go. There you go. That's all you need. I can talk. Is that needed? Is that a skill that's necessary in the zombie apocalypse? I'm not sure. So I did want to share with you guys, for those of you that may be interested, what I was doing for the whole time that I inappropriately assumed it would take like a month or a month and a half, and it took way longer. So this is, let me see, I have a list here. This is early August. This is our studio in early August. That was like a month and some change after we were on hiatus. What you're looking at there was what used to be a workbench and a bunch of other stuff that was in the house when we bought it, and we had to rip all that out and then put some sealant along all the walls where the walls had been damaged and all that good stuff. And then we had to install the insulation. So this is also the process happening at the beginning of August.
This shot right here, I have to give you huge credit, Bridger, for hiding the blood stains.
Yeah, no, that's important because... if you cover them over with sealant, then the dogs can't find them. So this is end of August. By the end of August, we'd had most of the framing done, and I was like, I can't believe that took a month by itself. Oh my God! I told everybody we'd be back by now. This isn't even close. We also had the electric done, as you can see. The lights are in the ceiling, and all the wires are run and everything. Then we get to about mid-October, and it looks like this. So it took a good 2 or 3 weeks at least. A good 2 or 3 weeks after the month of September in order to get this far. And it was quite a lot of work. Actually, putting the drywall up wasn't terrible, except for all those custom pieces we had to cut to do the various corners and stuff like that. But then the actual compounding, all that white stuff to try and make everything smooth, that was a huge pain. So that's mid-October. And then by the beginning of December... it looks like this, and it is great, and I love it. Everything except the color, which I blame on my wife because she said to get mint green. So I was like, okay, she's the artist. I'll just and now it's mint green.
Yep. I'm gonna say that she made the right choice, and you're wrong.
Oh, okay. Well, I do like it a lot better with the white trim. It just looked weird when it was by itself. Here's a couple other angles. So we've got basically a large rec room that's demarcated by that sort of archway in the middle there, where the main beam is.
It's a signed poster.
Yeah.
Every single poster in here is signed.
Wow.
So the Company of Heroes poster signed by the entire Relic team. The Rise of Legends poster and the Rise of Nations poster are both signed by Big Huge Games team. The Rise of Nations one is just by Brian Reynolds. And then I've got these 2 Star Citizen ones that are signed by Chris Roberts and Aaron Roberts from PAX. I'm still looking for those other 2. And I'd really love to get my hands on those other ones that were at Gamescom last year. And then I just took a whole load of my old boxes from my games, and I cut them up and created a sort of collage of important games going through my life. So it starts over there on the side there. You can see it's got Colonization. That's the first game that I can remember playing for a massively extended period of time. Half-Life's in there, Duke Nukem 3D. And then you go over to Deus Ex, Diablo 2, Wolfenstein, and then it goes through. And then by the time you get all the way to the right there, every single one of those is printed out of my computer because that becomes the digital age where I bought everything on Steam. So,
and somewhere in there is a black and white poster, right, from Lionhead?
No. No. These are for games that I spent a significant amount of time playing, not playing and
we're
going,
not disappointed
this is bullshit! Yeah, I wanted a light color because the basement doesn't have a lot of windows, so I wanted to make sure it looked pretty bright down there. And this is a shot of the studio. I haven't shown that off yet. This is the studio under construction. You can see we're using soundproofing insulation in the walls there. We've got a hard ceiling to prevent people walking upstairs in the dining room from being heard. We've got insulation in the ceiling there too. And today it looks like this. You can kind of see it through. You can see the green screen actually on the top of this picture. It's a roll of green paper that I roll down when I need it and roll up when I don't.
Yeah.
And then that's the actual setup there with the lights and everything.
And because it's green paper, we have an episode planned where someone will Kool-Aid Man through that screen into Bridger's scene.
All it's going to take is every single host to say, "Oh no," and then he can, "Oh yeah."
We'll have a counter that just starts ticking down for us here.
Oh,
and
everybody
there we're back.
Keep source in memory. Keep source in memory. I love the new features from the new XSplit, but I got to remember to actually use them. Okay, so that's that. Probably too many people didn't care about that. Let's get back to Star Citizen. The other thing, speaking of Star Citizen, the other thing that I've been doing recently is listening to the Guard Frequency podcast. I don't know if you guys listen to Guard Frequency.
I have not listened to any podcasts, including our own. I never go back and listen to these. I figure what's done is done. The past is past. We can only get better going forward.
No, that's absolutely true. I have probably created hundreds and hundreds of hours. No, I know that I've created hundreds and hundreds of hours of podcasts and content over the last 10 years. I've listened to none of it. None. Like select segments when I wanted to show other people, I've gone back and done that, but not just sitting there listening to myself talk about old things and cringing and going, "You were so wrong about that." But Guard Frequency is a great podcast. Definitely check them out. They've got really high production values, and they got a bunch of good skits and stuff going on in there.
Reddit certainly likes them quite a bit.
They do, yeah. I like. I'm listening to them in Sonny's Diner, but Sonny hasn't put up a new one in a little while, I think. So hopefully we see another one from him. All right,
Hopefully he's still okay.
This week, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the last show, we had essentially a lot of fun lampooning some not to be named articles that were very concerned about Star Citizen and its future.
God, are they easy to lampoon, though?
Yeah. Well, yes.
I stand by my criticisms for reference. All of them 100% legitimate and serious.
So, yes. And we did get a bit of feedback from people. Specifically, Ramsey on YouTube said, quote, "I had hoped for an in-depth analysis of backers' concerns, but felt most of your answers came down to, these concerns are not worthy, and in CR we trust," unquote. He's absolutely right.
I agree with the first part, but the second part, I don't think anyone here implied in CR we trust. So much as we haven't seen it yet, let's find out what it looks like when it gets there.
Well, yeah, I mean that's Sonny's Diner has the running joke that they were the first ones to coin the term "in Chris we trust," and they wanted to put it on T-shirts. But yeah, I mean that's what a lot of people do, and to be honest, they're pretty much right on. And a couple other people said the same thing. Is we kind of just talked about non-justifiable concerns, and there are plenty of actual concerns. So we're going to dedicate the last section of this show to go over those specific concerns, including some of the ones that Ramsey raised for us on YouTube.
We listen to you.
Yes, indeed. Actually, that's one that's actually a concern of mine, but we'll get to there. Before we go there, we are going to talk a little bit about AC 1.0 and the live stream that they just did before Christmas here, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Before we finish, let me just remind you that Tales of Citizens is very happy to have any feedback from you guys. Check us out and email us, feedback@talesofcitizens.com. You can also leave us comments on the YouTube video, or just go to the website and you'll find links there. So, with that having been said, if you do have any topics that you think would be great for the show, go ahead and let us know. So, let's talk about the live stream and Arena Commander 1.0. You guys have both played it, I assume?
Yeah.
Briefly.
I've got some footage of it that I can put up here in a moment. The first thing,
I also want to take a quick pitch here. If you want to see more footage and some of the really interesting little mechanics, we got Maniacal Ginger in YouTube chat right now.
Oh, was he the one we were just watching his videos today?
We were. Go check out his videos. He has some great little short, some of them, but some short mechanics-oriented videos that are really great to watch.
It appears that Twitch XSplit has crashed on me.
Oh no.
Oh, so it has.
Okay, let me Control-Alt-Delete. YouTube is streaming. All right, I'm gonna try this again. So one of the first things that happened in the live stream is the Mustang commercial. Hey! It works! Sorry, I'm figuring out 2.0 as we go. So, I have to say, I was thoroughly impressed by this guy and his douchiness.
It was very impressive.
The amount of things he could say without actually saying anything.
Dare to dream.
Way up there.
Dare to
Way
challenge
up
the
there.
expectations of what's come before. To embrace the unique, to put everything
Now,
on.
there's
Oh,
an actor-
guys, we just have to embrace the unique. That's what we were doing wrong for so long.
There we go.
So many words for so little content.
Oh, it was great. I couldn't believe it. They took every buzz phrase that you could hear in any executive's boardroom and turned it into an advertising campaign. This is like this. How can they come up with so many unique feelings for the different companies?
They didn't paradigm shift outside of the box, though.
That's true.
Hey, it looks like YouTube's back up too.
Excellent.
Oh, good.
So yeah, that was, I was seriously impressed by that. And again, just like every other commercial that came out, I'm like, well, they can't possibly make another one that good. I dare you to prove me wrong, CIG.
You know, I really liked the Aurora commercial. Oh, not Aurora, damn it. The Mustang commercial. Terrible. But I also like how they did a great job of, with the Mustang overall, finding a good fighter-based starter ship you can just switch your Aurora out for.
Absolutely. That's made out of tissue paper. That's
Yes.
important.
Yes.
They actually managed that.
Well, yeah, I was just going to get to that. So the Aurora and the Mustang, they're like side grades now. You can kind of go between them. They're the very basic starter ships. So a lot of people are like, well, the Mustang seems superior in every way. And then other people are like, well, except that you can't carry any cargo ever.
Well, and there's no missiles, only rockets, if I remember correctly.
On the Mustang versus the Aurora?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Mustang has missile racks that just fire out the dumbfires. So the Aurora has the ability to lock on and then, bolt
Actually shoot.
120 meters per second. The Mustang, you have to actually land the rockets while you're flying straight at someone.
Though when they hit, good God.
Oh yeah, that's some ridiculous damage.
There's
Actually,
a good trade-off there.
I am impressed that they made the trade-off.
Yeah.
There's a lot of games that would sort of shy away from that, and at least they've committed for now to making it so the dumbfires matter.
Yeah.
Have you had any luck using the dumbfires?
I don't have a Mustang actually.
Oh, okay.
So
I
I have been watching lots of people use them,
Yeah.
which is a lot of fun, but I do not have them myself.
The short answer is I have not had a lot of luck with Arena Commander 1.0. The initial release had the drops, the 15
the server
minute
drops, yeah.
And now that I have it where I can actually get in there, I'm having the hardest time getting my controls dialed in. So I keep stopping, redoing my controls, starting. But that's because I have that new HOTAS, and I had not set it up in Arena Commander prior.
Gotcha.
So
So you and I are like we're proof of the that everything is a zero-sum game, because I was having a way easier time setting up my controls now than trying to dig through the XML, wait 5 minutes for the game to load, wait 5 minutes for Vandal Swarm to load to test it out. Nope, didn't work. Close the game, go back into the XML. Oh man, that took an entire afternoon and I gave up. But they finally have a decent control scheme changer in there. But what you just haven't had the time to go through.
My issue is I have not done anything with the HOTAS yet, so I'm trying to learn the little ins and outs and all the foibles of it, and I keep running into rocks.
Yeah, the trick with the HOTAS is it really is nifty once you have it working.
Yes.
But as my wife can attest to, I spent hours on the XML files every time they patched. And this time, I don't have to do an XML file, but I have to individually bind every button.
And you're still spending hours at it.
Yeah, and then when the solution is, guys, the solution, just go delete your user folder. And you just, no, please.
But you can export. So you can actually export the control scheme.
Yes.
Which is what I did. So when I actually had that whole thing exported out, once I got the whole buttons done, since then, I just have a copy, I have a backup folder that I keep somewhere else, drag it in, life is good. And apparently, Callie has been caught stealing.
About to say, the dog barking in the background there is mine, and I may murder him. I'm not sure why he's barking, but God damn it, dog. Hold on for a second, or we'll see. I can shut him up. We can keep going.
Whatever's good for you. I can mute you here. Go take care of it.
Yeah, go ahead and mute me for a bit.
All right, so I muted him so that we won't have to hear the beating that is about to ensue.
Oh, that's terrible.
No, it is terrible. No, he's probably just going to go give him a steak. So the other
let's
thing...
be clear here. He is not Michael Vick. He is not going to go abuse his dog.
So let's talk about the Cutlass, because one of the first things I saw from the people that were able to play during 1.0 is a lot of people saying the Cutlass doesn't perform very well, especially not considering the fact that they showed us this amazing commercial about it like pirouetting through and just completely avoiding missiles with its agility.
Let's be fair here. The Cutlass can indeed pirouette. It has one of the best roll rates you could ask for on a ship, and its ability to strafe up and down seemed to be very good, though the main thrusters, there's some question about whether they're currently bugged or whether they're engaging, that kind of thing.
Or that they just fall off at the first shot.
Yes. I think the bigger concern about the Cutlass, that this is a concern, is actually about the speed.
Its overall speed was 160, right?
Yes. People were expecting a fighter, and I remember we were joking about this beforehand, and Callie, you guys can't see it on screen, he's making a face. That ship was advertised to a lot of folks as the Speed Demon. And instead of a Speed Demon, what they've got is something that moves, what you're saying, about the speed of a Freelancer, what you'd expect there. So
Probably,
a couple of big engines, a lot of mass. That's
the
difficult.
only thing it beats is an Aurora, right? I think
I'm not sure.
Currently?
What is it it beats one other thing in this game. I can't remember what it
beats
was.
the Aurora.
Or no, the Aurora is
caps
170, I think, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
All right, I got to do a Google search.
We'll check this out. We got to fact check this during the show. Whatever the case, it's slow.
But as far as the advertising went, I mean, I could be thinking back too far. I mean, things have changed in the ship descriptions, but Drake was overall described as the Honda of space, and the Cutlass was the Accord. So I don't understand why people thought they were getting a speed demon unless, you soup it up or something.
It's not a racer, that's for sure.
Yeah. And that said, if it is a nimble dogfighter, it has a ton of cargo space. If it has a ton of cargo space, how is it a nimble dogfighter? It seems like a kind of a this is the best ship ever invented role.
It's a bastard sword, right? It's a combination of two roles, but it's a jack of all trade kind of. It's like it's good for a very specific purpose, and that is assisting someone in the removal of their cargo should they become stranded in space.
Now, that said, I fully expect a Cutlass
and cutting their hull open if you need to get to the body.
Right.
Exactly. I fully expect a Cutlass, well piloted, to be able to take on a non-military freelancer and get the cargo out. Get in there, cut through the hole, whatever you're going to do, however that mechanic ends up working, and get in there, because that seems to be the role they envision for it. But I don't see it as being able to necessarily outrun everything or outfight everything outside of a merchant ship.
Yep. And as Dostro noted, it wasn't really advertised as Speed Demon. It was advertised as Nimble, and there's a big difference between those two things.
Okay, so the Aurora looks to be 150, but these are old numbers. I'm not sure. But when they doubled everybody's max speed, I think they just moved
YouTube
to the
confirms 150.
Anyway. 150. So, okay, good.
Yep.
So I think that the Aurora is the only thing that it out speeds right now. And of course, those are all stock. Everything can change to that extent. I think the other problem is people were talking about that it wasn't nimble. And I think, as Gray mentioned earlier, it seemed pretty apparent if you were looking in third-person view that the two extra thrusters on the back weren't firing. And that the main thrusters seemed to bug out and kind of like get caught in a do I go up or do I go down moment when they should just pick a thing and go. So hopefully that all is being worked on. But the big issue that's being talked about everywhere about Arena Commander 1.0, once people finally got to play it, was missile spam.
Yes.
Oh, yes. That's... Wow.
But At a guess, the missile spam might just be one mechanic getting in ahead of better countermeasures, or the signature system getting dialed in, or what have
Well,
you.
yeah, this is a very, very first attempt at using the signature system to determine whether or not missiles will stay locked on you, right? Before it was just, they had, I assume that before they had the signature system, it was just fire a missile, it will either hit or not hit based on some percent chance and when they fired the countermeasures, right? Now they've actually got the basic system in place.
Yeah.
And I think missiles are still, our missile evasion as a tactic is still in its infancy.
Yes.
It's important to note that what we're seeing right now is a small sample size of people who've been able to play, because honestly, there were some connection problems right at the beginning of it, and a lot of people are away from their computers at college or their main home or whatever they're doing when they're out for the holidays. We don't know at this point. We don't have a sample size for how effective the missiles actually are once people know how to dodge them. And with that in its infancy, I find it difficult to say, well, we need to nerf that. There's a part of me that wants to see how it acts after a couple of weeks. Can people figure out ways to make the missiles less prone to hitting? And at the same time, as some have noted, Vin has a topic over on Twitch right now talking about making the missiles respawn less. What we're seeing right now is an arena mode. People die or they eject and they come back with a full complement of missile loadout. You're in the persistent universe and you let loose with every missile on your Avenger at the first dude you come across on your trade route. You have 3 more systems worth of pirates to go. You might be in for some problems.
Yeah, and not to mention that missiles will have a cost. And so you wouldn't just fire them unless you think, well, this is necessary for my survival right now, or this is necessary to ensure, a 95% survival rate instead of an 85% survival rate. It's probably not going to be cheap, especially for the more powerful, more longer range, faster firing, better tracking missiles. Those are going to cost more and more. So you're firing money at your enemy to kill them at that point.
But there's a counter argument to that, which you saw in Eve, which when you're first starting out in a lot of these games, any MMO really, expensive items, like money is hard to come by. Items are expensive, you can't afford to replenish. But late game, you are literally like, gold is falling out of your pockets. So buying and selling and getting all that cash in any of these games isn't hard. So that might actually, and I don't know if this will be the case, might actually end up punishing newer players who want to go out and dogfight and need to use the missiles. Whereas established players that are out there fighting, you guys have run your private military organization for a while. You've got a factory just printing these things for you. So not only does it cost cheaper, you've had longer to get more cash. And now you're just able to expend missiles and win engagements that are too expensive for newer players to fight in.
Literally firing money. Yeah, that's a really good point. And to that degree, if they make the quote-unquote good missiles much more expensive and much better than the basic missiles, then that's where that problem gets exacerbated. So obviously that's a balance issue for much further in the future, so we can hope that that works out. But as you were talking about Vin's suggestion from Team Legacy, his suggestion that he posted on the Arena Commander forums was simply to have a timer rather than a respawn refill of your missiles. So everybody gets
whichever
more missiles
one comes first
after 5 minutes or something.
Or
well, no,
last,
not because one of the problems is people are killing themselves to get more missiles. Because if you're sitting around like fighting other people who have missiles and all you have left are your guns, then you're going to lose anyway. Might as well get more missiles faster so you can kill things faster and get higher on the leaderboards. That's the problem that they're running into. That's the optimal strategy, quote unquote.
So on YouTube, Dostro89 has suggested that what if we limited it to 1 set per round? So you have your loadout of missiles, and if you die, you respawn, and if you fired 2, you're missing 2. Which isn't a bad idea, but I'm going to go one step further. There's a game out there that's already kind of got this arena system for World War II dogfighting called War Thunder. And if you've played that, once you lose your ship, it's gone. And if you don't have more ships to replace it with, you can't play. Now, for the ground forces, you can play up to 3 times, and then you're out. What if you put a limit number of respawns in a round of Arena Commander? Like if you've got an Aurora, you can show up and play with that 3 times, you get your 3 missiles, then you're done. and then you had a similar each ship that comes out gets its full allotment, but you only have a limited number of spawns now.
Yeah, that could be an
possible.
interesting mode, but I wouldn't want that to be the main mode, to be honest. Part
I
of the
think
problem there
part-
is...
yeah.
Go ahead, Greg.
I think part of the problem with anything that limits the number of spawns or the number of missiles right now is that we don't get to see the evasion testing. I
Fair.
agree. If we were at a polished product, yes, we should see more limits on missiles. We should see more limits on that. And maybe a timer or a short timer is the solution right now. But I think saying we should have much more limited missile firing means that we'll have much more limited missile testing.
True.
And right now we're playing an alpha. If this was a live
sure.
game, I would be all on board with this.
I don't think limiting missiles to only 4 per game per player is going to prevent people from trying to figure out how to dodge missiles. That's going to happen if there's 4 missiles per player per game. Or if
16
there's,
missiles per
12 missiles or 16 missiles per player per game. That's not really going to change, because I actually practiced it today. I tried, it's the first time an IR missile locked onto me. I immediately, they were firing at me from the front, so I could see it coming. So I quickly strafed to the left, went into decoupled mode. Now that I'm moving to the left, shut down my engines and fired a flare. So now I'm flying cold, quote unquote, to the left.
Yeah.
I've got a flare behind me going the other way, and the missile then blew me up anyway. It blew me up anyway. No, no, that's not true. I did evade that one, but the other one got me.
Yeah. and it may just be that countermeasures need to be better, period. So the active countermeasures should be more effective than your signature dying or something like that. Something that makes it, again, back to the skill-based versus, blind luck arguments.
I mean,
And it's a balance question, for sure.
It's really early, because now we're just getting this new system. If there were more ways for the player to manipulate it, like if there was an emergency shutdown for your engines or some kind of thing where you could like cool them down, but it would take a long time to warm them back up, some more control over your signature, then that would give us better play and counterplay between the missiles and the countermeasures. But again, that's all coming in the future. Let's move on. The other thing that I did notice, and that you can see here, is I felt way more comfortable with these controls on a joystick. It took a while to get used to the lag pip rather than the one where it goes in front. What is that, LIP versus PIP?
There's the target
Lead indicator.
Lead
and
indicator
then you've
versus
got
lag
the
indicator?
pip. Yeah.
But I definitely, I wound up getting used to it, and it was okay. It was okay after a while. One thing that I did have a conversation today about is I had a 325A, and it comes with the 2 Omnisky 6s
Yes.
and 1 mass driver. And the problem with that is now you've got guns that focus at different distances due to their rate of fire.
Yes.
It's true. Now, it's worth noting, though, that the mass driver and the laser still have their places. If you're in close on somebody and you peg them once in the cockpit with a mass driver, you might be able to kill them.
Yeah.
Or a couple of times.
It's your knife fighting tool versus the long range Omnisky 6s.
And that's a decision you have to make. If you're willing to say, okay, I'll get in close and I'll knife fight somebody here, it's the same sort of thing if you mount a neutron cannon on the front of your ship. You're making a choice to say, this is a way that I could play in this ship, or I could be further out. And actually, looking at Maniacal Ginger's video about weapon range and appropriate engagements, that makes a lot of sense. Being able to say, okay, this person has a lot of long-range weapons. I could probably have a better chance if I came in close and just whomped them with something that's a high damage projectile.
I can totally get behind that. However, the problem I had was identifying, and maybe with more practice I'll be able to get it, but the problem I had was trying to identify which one I wanted at any given moment. I know they're different shapes, but the other thing is that the nose cone has a gimbal on it. And if you try to utilize that, it just gets worse, because now it's moving differently from the front of your ship, especially if you do that sort of target follow thing, which is great, except now I'm trying to line up, and I don't know which one to line up. Do I line up this one or that one? And I don't know. I caved and I bought another Omnisky 6 and I said, I'm just going whole hog, boom and zoom here. I'm just going to come in, fire these things, overheat as much as I can, and then get out throwing all my energy to rear shields the moment I pass by them. And then just do it again.
I noticed you only had the one pip on there. I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, that's what I did for... I just keep it simple at this point.
Yeah.
And who was it? Gam2 in the chat was saying that you can put the lead indicators back in. There's an option. I think it says PIP. You can turn it on or off. And that is available. But I do think I like the lag indicators. I didn't think I would.
I feel so much more precise with the lag.
Yeah. Because you're actually looking at the ship you're trying to hit versus a little reticle off to the side. And with the ESP, I think that made a huge difference too.
Definitely.
With the ESP, you actually feel a little more control when you're trying to lay in the shots.
Absolutely. There was no question. I felt like I was actually really enjoying myself and not fighting the system and going, oh, I can't do what I want to do. Like, it only took about maybe 10 to 15 minutes for me to feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I can reliably turn ahead of my opponent, line up a shot, fire off a shot, and hit, 85% of the time. And that's a good feeling. You like feeling that you can do something at least some of the time, rather than just going, I'm blindly shooting, and I got a hit. I didn't even know I was going
firing my lasers.
Yeah.
And bastard, he got away. Yeah. I had a lot of that, especially with the M50s in the first release of them. I was always amazed when I managed to lead enough to land a shot before they flew away and came back at me.
Yeah, to be fair, I was actually doing all of this in Vandal Swarm, because when I went online, I wasn't able to get any laser hits. It was all missiles. All right, so any final other thoughts on 1.0? I mean, everybody did mention the sounds were much improved, pretty significantly.
Yes.
Did we mention ESP yet?
But yeah, we talked a little bit about it, but yeah,
briefly,
because
it's clearly...
Holy crap.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference on your joystick.
With joysticks, now a lot of mouse users have been complaining about ESP from their end. Not, oh my god, the joysticks have an advantage, but it's, I don't like ESP with the mouse. How can I turn it off? I've seen those rolling by in the Arena Commander forums.
Yeah, I could see that being a problem. You're just used to mouse being a one-to-one input. That's like, when people always turn off acceleration in first-person shooters and stuff.
Yeah.
So that might be an option in like the 1.0.1 release or something, as far as getting a mouse or an ESP disabling option. And if you're using a joystick, do not do that.
All right, so 1.0, a lot of fun. I expect we'll see a patch to missiles in some way sometime at the beginning of January. Hats off to CIG for their significant effort in not only getting it out before the holiday, but then working through the holiday. I saw a report that some people were actually at the office on Christmas, which is crazy to me. But
I wish I could say I'd never done that. But when I was a younger man with no toddler, it was an option that I actually engaged in. Married, but no kid yet. Yeah. However, these days I wouldn't consider it.
Yeah.
All right. So that's going to wrap up our discussion on Arena Commander 1.0. We are going to jump into data analysis. This section is going to be talking about all of our concerns for Star Citizen. We are on a time schedule tonight. That's why I'm kind of jumping to our big segment, so we can spend the whole time talking about it. So, as I mentioned earlier, Travis from YouTube, as well as Ramsey, both mentioned that they were kind of disappointed we didn't talk about actual concerns. One of his concerns was, quote, the Cutlass Pirate Pack sold with a hull jig cutter, and 12 months later, here's the police Cutlass Blue, and Travis Day hasn't heard of a hull jig cutter, which was so important a feature that the UEC in the Pirate Pack was less than other ships, but it was still worthwhile, unquote. So I want to take this one, because the problem here is that CIG could have chained themselves to their everything they said on the Kickstarter exactly and not changed a thing. But that would really, really weaken the game, because they were in way pre-production when they made that Kickstarter. The designs for the Cutlass and the 300i and the Aurora were barely in there. So
look at the old UI videos for the Hornet, and you'll see a massive difference and improvement in the latest stuff.
Yes. So what I would like to suggest to people who would be disappointed about this particular element is I think their concern is justifiable if the spirit of the item they pledged for in the Kickstarter is not maintained. So if they pledged for an item that was supposed to be ideal for pirates as a sort of ship used to go in there, be a heavy fighter, but also take cargo away and good for killing merchantmen, right? It's not going to tangle with a Hornet, but it's good for taking out a cargo ship, right? That's the idea behind it.
Quick,
as long
let's
as it
hold
maintains
them to the
that.
in-fiction and say that it'll also get destroyed by 325As.
Sure.
Well, when they do the balance pass on the 325A, maybe. But continue.
Yeah, I think if it doesn't live up to the spirit of that concept, then I think they definitely have a justifiable concern. I think it will live up to that concept, because right now it still kind of feels like that to me, and I'm not really seeing CIG screwing those people over that way.
No.
I just don't see that happening.
They haven't really gone for the screwing people over yet, although, getting back to items in packages, like the 350R Lightspeed package came with a exclusive suit that they have since resold. I apparently have that suit too. I haven't worn it today though. However, they also offered it for sale later, and people blew up about it and didn't like it. And then the same was like a pistol for the military. I'm sorry, the Super Hornet, and it just seems that it was offered as part of the package, and they're going to offer it for $10 as a standalone item. I don't see the real concern, because every item you could possibly get, you should be able to buy in the public universe once it goes out there. Maybe with the exception of the Soda crossbow. But other than that, everything and we know even from the in-game fiction so far, the F7A kit will be available from the get-go. It was released by an aftermarket thing. They had like 400,000 out there in the world for sale. So
made by Consolidated
Outland, right?
Yeah, Outland.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, Joyzy said, oh well, they're trying to get you to buy another ship to get the boarding pod for the Vanduul that has it. I don't think that's the case. I think they're not worrying right now about the little extras that are going to only be available in the PU. We're still working on just trying to get the basic ship combat working correctly. The public universe, the Persistent universe is way, way, way out. Yeah. Once we get there, if the Cutlass doesn't have a way to, board another ship and take their stuff by default, then I'm entirely on board with you guys. But let's just hold off on being really angry over that until we get to the point where it's going to matter. All right.
Rebel.
Next up, Travis from YouTube also had another one. He said, quote, November 26, 2013 marked the end of lifetime insurance. Now it's back. And insurance isn't important, but this year's anniversary limited availability sale gets 24 months instead of 3. We no longer know how long 3 months insurance is, as it's now game time, whatever that means, unquote. So he just seems to have some Gray, are there still some justifiable concerns over insurance?
Okay, the only concern that I agree with on this, as part of that, is we don't actually know how long game time compression is. Now, that's not a concern as in capital C concern topic, because we don't have a vision of their game mechanic yet. We don't know how much they want time compression to be exactly. But as for the insurance itself, I think this is still making a mountain out of a molehill. Insurance is supposed to be a minimal cost. They've said repeatedly that it's going to be a minimal cost. They've said that it's only a standard hull insurance for LTI, which everyone will have access to. It's exactly the same thing, and it's a minimal cost.
Yep.
And LTI will always be a complaint. It's going to be a thing that people have constantly because, somebody else got an advantage over me that they didn't have to pay 200 credits over the course of 2 real-life months of game time, or whatever it ends up being. It's going to be minimal, guys. This is not supposed to be a game-breaking mechanic. It was never intended to be.
Yeah.
And for that matter, it's not even something that lets you win. However you define win, it doesn't matter. If you're looking at it, it's just a convenience for people who back in certain ways that CIG wants to reward. That's it.
Playing devil's advocate. If it doesn't matter so much, then why even have it? I mean, the whole point of insurance in general is to make it not so painful when you inevitably lose your ship, right?
Sure.
Either to NPCs that you just couldn't fight, or to players that come and gank your stuff, or in a failed gank where you yourself got counter ganked, or whatever you want to call it. It's because if you lost your ship and had to start back from scratch every single time, that would not be an enjoyable experience, right?
Not even remotely.
And so insurance is there to make it less painful. But if it's so much less painful that it's just like a drop in the bucket, then does that take a lot of the...
Monetarily, it's a drop in the bucket. And that's something that's worth noting here. Your ship may not appear again instantly.
Well, it won't. They've said it won't.
Yeah.
It takes a while to manufacture.
You may be, trying to gank people in your Cutlass because, shits and giggles. And lose because, that wasn't one signature, it was a Hornet underneath that Starfarer. Mm-hmm. If that happens, you're in for a bad time, because your Cutlass isn't going to appear instantly back in your hangar. And when you start talking about bigger ships, some idiot drives an Idris into the side of a Bengal and hopes that that's a better missile, you're going to be talking about possibly
spinal
weeks.
Boarding party. Yes. I want my Idris to have a spinal boarding mount.
The cost isn't there, I think, as a mechanic, as a money drain. I think the cost is there to remind you that you should be careful about it.
Well, I guess the real penalty for failure is the potential death of your character, right? And obviously, all of the modules that you might have to replace, because those either have separate insurance or don't get insured, which is the EVE Online model, right? So the big high rollers can spend $1 gajillion on their awesome Super Tech 3 modules, but then when they lose their ship, they now have to repay all of those, whereas the lower level guy who's new, who doesn't have a massive treasure hoard, now he can go in with his Tech 1, maybe a few Tech 2 modules, and if he loses that ship, it's not nearly that big of a deal. So
ramming speed.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just the death of the character that could be a problem. You might be able to eject or get away. It's also, you spent how many hours getting out there to have that fight. And, that many hours has to be effectively replayed to get back to that same position. And you've lost time in your time sink.
And as Gam2 noted over in Twitch chat, you're losing all your modules.
Mm.
I mean, you put on a whole rack of however many rattlers on your, you name it, ship. It doesn't matter. You lose those, it's going to hurt.
Though, that said, there is one hull where I feel that there is that actual unfairness, but at least there's only, 300 and some of them. And that would be the captured Vandal with LTI. Because everyone else has to go out there and work their ass off to get one of these guys to eject and not self-destruct, in theory. Again, we don't know how it's actually going to play out.
Well, but remember, they haven't really... I mean, you're getting a new Vandal Scythe, but it might take a while. It might take even longer than like an Idris replacement, because at least that can be manufactured in the UEE. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to me that the Scythes, you'd want those to be rare. Having one is a prestige item. So if somebody, even with LTI, has to wait, a couple of days for their Scythe to be replaced, I don't think they'll mind that much if that's the cost of being one of the only few people to be flying around in a Scythe. I feel like that's a really cool thing. And if you don't lose your Scythe, you don't die, you don't have to worry about that, right?
I mean, this is one of the things that makes the Scythe a legitimately interesting collector's edition for the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
People who got that have a real bragging right. The fact is, pointing your thumbs there. But people who get them in game can still have the experience. So it's not even like the collector's edition is effectively preventing your gameplay. It's just saying, hey, you person who backed early or spent 25 grand, holy crap. as part of the new package.
Yes.
You guys can have this scythe consistently. So if you go do something stupid, if you go pretend to be a Vandal in UE space and start ramming a Bengal, that's fine. You'll lose stuff, but you won't lose your scythe.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? There was one thing I wanted to mention when we were talking about Arena Commander 1.0. I was just watching my montage here. As far as tips for flying, I got a couple that I learned. If you bind at least one key somewhere to strafe up, down, left, or right, one of those things, that is super useful for when you have head-on collisions with enemies and you blow them up and then need to dodge the wreckage you're flying directly at. So do
if you
that.
can't avoid jousting, do that.
Yes.
Yes.
It's not bad. You can even circle. I got into like circle straight, trying to practice, figure out, okay, if they're turning this way, I want to strafe the other way to kind of circle around them so that I continue to stay out of their frontal line, but I can turn faster and stay in there. So that I thought that was pretty useful.
To do it even more hardcore, you also want to pitch or yaw in the opposite direction you're strafing, because that makes you much tighter turns, so you can really follow them with the pointer.
Yep.
But all right, but back to the insurance.
Yes.
Ultimately, it's going to be minor convenience. It's not that big a deal according to the developers. But here's the thing: I don't want to play State Farm in space. It's nothing personal, but all this
like a Gordon neighbor, that Cutlass.
It's all in good hands. I want to just go out there, have a fight, do my trade, and if I lose my ship, I've got insurance. It comes back. I don't want to worry about it. If there are other games out there that have an insurance model that they could follow, and all it would do is just make sure you have your 5% deposit in the bank and you get your ship back. I don't want to worry about. I don't want to go out there and say, hey, I've got to renew my insurance for the month or whatever. I don't want to pop up. I just want go out there, play, have fun, and if you die, the pop up says, hey, your insurance premium was this much. Pay it, or don't get your ship back. And if I don't have the cash on me, I can pay it the premium later or something. If I have to be concerned about whether or not I've got my life insurance, my cargo insurance, my modular insurance, and all that, it's not going to be that much fun for me. Nothing personal.
Auto renew.
Auto bill pay.
All right.
That means really just have it auto renew, and in the event that something goes terribly wrong, since we've been confirmed that insurance will only be played time.
Yes.
We already know that, which is great. So you will have your insurance expire while you're playing, guaranteed.
But I just thought of the first unfair mod for Star Citizen. The mod that detects when your ship is at 5% health and immediately renews your insurance on it.
All right,
like it.
So
that's
let's
clever.
move on. We've got a couple more to talk about here. Travis from YouTube also brought up modular ships. He said, quote, make your ship your own, Aurora commercial, etc. Now there seems to be a specialist ship for every flavor of playstyle with a ship to buy, but cargo hold equipment changes so a Cutlass or Freelancer Max can fly varied missions. Wasn't planned. So won't be a thing on day one of the PU. Okay, this one's very convoluted. But what he's trying to say is that there's a lot of these specialty ships, but there were changes to the cargo hold and the way that works. So now the larger ships like the Freelancer Max or the Cutlass, they won't be able to fly these varied and modular missions because their whole thing is that they're a cargo hold, right?
I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I think the problem and the real complaint to make is the one that was made, as much as I hate this topic with every fiber of my being, in the Cutlass topic.
Okay.
That 27,000 post slog of death that I started reading on the first day. There's a big complaint there that the blue and the red had all this equipment in the cargo hold, and the black had basically nothing. And there were questions about, well, why can't my black have a prison cell? Or why can't it have a med bed? Or why can't my blue have a med bed in addition to one prisoner cell? Being able to heal a prisoner and then do that seems realistic to me. This is where it all went downhill. And this is where the modularity question came from. Because this was the spawn of hell that started that entire snowball that's led to the Cutlass redesigns. I think it's a valid question to say, how much can we customize the interior of our ship? How much can we customize the equipment that's in that ship? What are the things that we're allowed to put on there? Questions about external hard points and saying, oh, I can't do this with my, what do you want to call it? My Freelancer Max, because it doesn't have... Wait a second. What doesn't it have? What are we missing here? Well, it's got a slightly bigger hull. It's got 4 engines. It's got the same cargo bay. Oh, wait, it doesn't have those hatches that the Oh, wait, that's a hull thing.
Yeah.
I'm missing the question on this one, I think.
Well,
I'm not seeing the Max as being limited by having a bigger hull unless the jump point's much, much smaller and the Freelancer could only fit by 2 inches on each side.
Let me put ship roll.
Let me put it this way. My concern with modular ships is that we'll have what amounts to a few hulls that are considered to be the things to have for people that want to do varied tasks. So, say a Freelancer or a Cutlass. These are the things that you can kind of change. Okay, right now I need to haul cargo. Later I need to do this. Later I need to do that. And you can kind of change it the way you want it. And then a lot of the other ones, if they're not the best in the specific role they're doing, are just going to fall by the wayside. So part of that is only becomes a problem if we get really way too many playable ships. And I'm not super worried about that yet. Here's how I hope they balance it, right? The cheaper the ship is, the less specialized it is, and the more versatile it is, right? So you get the Aurora. And the thing about the Aurora commercial is like, okay, you can swap out, get a bigger cargo bay, you can get bigger missiles, you can do this, you can do that. Like, they tried to say, look how versatile this thing is, right? Yep. And then you get a little more expensive, and you get to something like the Hornet, which can't really haul as much cargo as the Aurora, but it is really good at shooting things. And then you get even more specific. You get the Super Hornet, which has no cargo space, but it's got an extra turret, making it even better for dogfighting. And then you look at the even more expensive things, like the Carrack, which is going to be really good for exploration. So far, it's probably the best exploration ship we've seen so far. You've got tons of room for cargo and salvage you can find on alien planets and what have you. And you've got huge amounts of big power plants. You can power huge sensor suites and things like this.
That your 3 crew can mutiny and kill you for.
And then your 3 crew can mutiny and kill you for it. But at the same time, it's obviously not going to be able to win any sort of combat by itself. Whereas a Freelancer, might actually still be able to fight. It's still got 4 big guns on it. It's still got a turret on the back.
Yeah.
So, again, you're looking at that evolution. You have like the 315P to the Freelancer to the Carrack, and as you get more expensive, they get more specialized towards exploration and less versatile. And that's the way I like to see it. Sure, it's more expensive, but it's also forced into a very specific slot.
Well, they're more expensive and more resource intensive. I mean, again, Carrack versus, say, the Constellation versus the 315P or the Freelancer. Each step in there is going to require more fuel, more crew, which is either NPC and paid or player, and 4 people are taking their time to go explore with you. It just becomes more difficult to use each ship in appearance. And again, we don't have the mechanics yet, but hopefully. More difficult to use each ship to its fullest potential as you go up in specialization as well.
Does the Carrack really have 8 guns? That kind of negates my point, but I kind of wish it was that way. But I think they're all turrets, right? They're not great for...
They're deployable.
They're sort of defensive, I see that as. I mean, it's going to be too fast to really catch anything. Or too slow, rather, to catch anything. I can't imagine the Carrack being any faster than the Cutlass. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't see it. But we don't know how fast the big ships are quite yet.
No.
And there is a question, Pink Unicorn Lover. Oh my god, there's a name. Put up in Twitch about the main thruster is currently not giving any thrust, or very little thrust, as the case may be, to your forward momentum.
It only has 2 turrets on it, and each turret has 2 guns. So it actually only has apparently 4. Plus, some class 4. Sorry, 2 class 4s as well. So it is 4 turrets. That's all defensive. You're not going to be able to focus your fire in a single direction, probably.
I think we're still seeing the flight model changing around a little bit so far as the main thrusters in the back versus the maneuvering thrusters thing. So I wouldn't worry too much about them not giving any thrust right now. We're going to see something with that in the future, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Alpha is alpha.
All right, let's
Yeah.
move on again. We're trying to get through all these before we run out of time. There is another bring back to pay to win here. So Travis again from the YouTube bringing up as this is his version of it. Quote: CIG says Star Citizen isn't pay to win, but then sell 200 javelins at 2,500 each. So they've either conned 200 people out of $2,500, or they've lied to the rest. The 10-ton hammer suggested that backing beyond $45 starter pledge might not be the wisest thing to do until the game is more complete, and I think that's sound advice. Unquote.
Sure.
I think he's absolutely right there.
Advice.
That is very sound advice.
Financially, unquestionably.
I think we've said it multiple times on this show. If you're paying more than $45 for this game, you're you're with us. You're one of us, but we're all insane.
One of us.
Yeah.
One of us.
It's not a logical thing, and I don't recommend it to people
even
unless if you have extra money to burn and you specifically would like to try out these ships sooner and you're willing to pay extra money just for that and to support the game and expect nothing more for that dollar amount, then you should pay extra. That's the only time.
We aren't making wise decisions. I mean, we are not clever men.
That is not what this is about.
But let's sort of try to address his thing. So what he says is they sold these things for $2,500. Either these things are worth more than twice as much as in more than two Idrises, or a lot of people just got conned out of their money. That's the way he put it. I feel like that's a false dichotomy.
Yes.
It is.
That's absolutely true. It's not a false dichotomy. They said, we're offering this product for this much money. We aren't claiming it's going to be worth that much money when you actually use it. It's just
we are selling
for more backers.
The frame of a Lego set.
It's prestige, isn't it? They're selling prestige. Yeah. Like the Javelin and the Idris are like the Rolex. Like a Rolex isn't actually worth $800 or whatever it costs these days. The physical pieces cost as like maybe $20 more than a Timex. Right?
You would be no. You would be shocked how difficult it is to work on one of those watches on the inside. I have been there, done that.
Fine. Okay. Maybe it's
they
worth
are better
$100. Okay.
They are not worth the like $5,000 that people are throwing at them.
That's my point.
There is a quality difference.
It's a prestige markup. It's not this thing is literally valued that much more than these other things. They've already said that when you actually get in game, the Constellation isn't going to cost X times as much as a Freelancer or Y times as much as a Hornet. You can't base their current pricing model on how it's going to be priced in-game because, again, the more expensive things that there are in current US dollars, those are inflated with a prestige value that is, I would like to give extra money to the game to be one of the few people who has this, but I really hope those people didn't expect to get, again, twice or three times as much as an Aurora out of their Hornet or what have you.
If you were playing that game, if you were playing the stat and cost to ship game, you've already lost. You are not in the company of sane people. You have lost.
And despite the statements that the stats will change and change repeatedly and may change dramatically, the role will be the same, but the stats themselves may wildly differ from what they published, and in most cases, already do. So it's, look at the role of the ship and purchase what you think is good. And you know what? If you want to play it from the ground up, just get the Aurora. Hell, wait for the next $20 sale and get that. I would suggest that highly.
The only problem I think you would have had is you could argue that the Aurora is just a huge pig in a dogfight and it's not really fun to fly in Arena Commander, but now you can get a Mustang. So if all you care about is I really want to play early and I want to be able to play and dogfight an Arena Commander with everybody, a Mustang is now a very good alternative. It's probably not going to be as good in the PU as a Hornet or even a 325A because they're very specialized in what they do, and it's a light fighter versus the heavier fighters and the faster fighters, but that's okay. Actually, it's probably
might be able to
par.
The 325A.
Yeah, it's on par probably now that I think about it. Probably, especially the Delta is the military one?
Delta's military.
Yeah, that one's probably on par with the
rockets.
325A, or closer,
Oh,
close-ish.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that would be a pretty hard fought fight. The Delta might win that. That's
all right. So That's the most amount of feedback that we got with people that had their own concerns. But I had
and more to the point.
Go ahead.
With the last thing with the whole pay to win.
Go ahead.
Everything in the persistent universe, the part that matters, will be available. Everything we can buy now will be available there. So it's not a pay to win argument to make unless you're really concerned with paying to win.
Pay to convenience.
Well, pay to convenience, but it's that unless you're concerned about paying to win an Arena Commander match, and they don't matter. There's no reward for any of this other than testing out the product and seeing what needs to change.
Pay to win alpha until they reset the leaderboard.
There you go.
So, go ahead.
I want to make one last thing on this too. There's a constant suggestion that there's a connection between sale choices by CIG and their ability to deliver a playable game. This needs to stop.
Yeah, that does not compute. One does not follow the other. I mean,
people scream again and again. Yeah. Oh, look, they released Javelins and they released Auroras at the same time. Clearly, this means they can't make the game. What are you smoking?
There's not.
Clearly,
a
Microsoft
conclusion.
made a tablet. That means that they can't afford to make a computer. No.
Yeah.
So pay to win. I mean, we did talk an entire show about that, but yeah, this is a sort of new thing with the Javelin, and it just brings up the highest price curve basically to 2,500 for a single ship.
Yeah.
But let's get back to some other concerns. So just to prove that the YouTube audience isn't the only one who can come up with things to be concerned about, I have my own concerns, and I don't know if you guys do, but the one that came to mind immediately was my concern about how well the game will scale. Right now, we have a playable version of the game that proves that you can fight and fly the fidelity they're talking about at the level of detail they're talking about with the physics fully in place with 8 players. But how far is that going to scale up? How many ships are they going to be able to fight together? Is it going to be 20? Is it going to be 40? Is it going to be 100? I was kind of hoping it would be closer to 100, and then have a large battle would have many 100 ship instances fighting around each other, having their own little battles that all kind of resolve into one, final melee of the last remaining 100 ships. But man, it's super complicated. I hope they can do it. That's my main concern.
I think that's what we have to leave it at. We hope they can do it right now, because we haven't even seen the 64-bit conversion quite yet.
True.
Yeah, although that would be interesting. And then their
we haven't
netcode
seen,
is still massively
their
early.
netcode is still massively in the works. We don't know anything about their, instance within an instance sort of thing, where you could see what was going on, but it wasn't quite being rendered the same way. That was a really interesting conversation I had about that, by the way.
Yeah.
And I'm really eager to see it implemented just as a coder. I'm not saying they can't do it. The technology's there. I think the big question right now is how long is it going to take them to get to that point?
Yeah.
And how long will it take to scale up?
I mean, my main concern is you look at the only other real competitor on this space, and you have EVE Online, basically, right? Now, EVE Online has thousands of ships, but they have to slow it down to one. Right, that's true. They do have a really old engine. I guess a more comparable example would be probably PlanetSide.
PlanetSide's fair.
Elite doesn't have many ships in a single area, do they?
No, what they did for this was they made it a very small instancing system, basically, comparatively.
I would say PlanetSide is actually a pretty good comparison. It's an FPS.
High fidelity.
High fidelity.
Fair.
That you can crank down.
It's got physics engines because all the vehicles and everything responds. It's got real physics in there.
And there's no option for them not to draw anybody in an area. You have to be able to see those people.
Yeah.
Which
so they did get it working eventually, and that's a more modern engine.
Yeah.
Which forced them to cap their servers.
Yeah.
And cap their continents. Capping their continents was really what we're looking at here. That's their instance, so to speak.
Yeah.
So the question is, how will Star Citizen say, okay, well, we have this level of fidelity, we have this level of ships, what's our maximum number in an instance? And how do we cap, and how do we switch this around, and what does that mean for the netcode? But again, I think the technology's there. I think they picked a good engine to do it with, even. It's just a question of how long it takes them to make it the stability that everybody wants. Because, come on, it's alpha. This is going to take time.
Surely.
Well, and Guild Wars 2 tried with their original RVR system to make a system where you didn't necessarily see everybody right away, and that was not fun.
not
to
great.
die to invisible players.
I don't think they tried to do that. I think they were forced to do that because they had no other choice with the kind of time they had.
Yeah. But they tried to make a working system that didn't draw everybody, and so we know that's a non-starter, and I guarantee that SIG has picked up a lesson from that one.
Yeah. All right, we're coming up on our time limit here. Do we have time for the last one, or should we save that for next show?
Let's give it a shot.
Let's give it a quick go.
The last one that I could come up with, and I don't know if you guys have anything more, but the last one that I came up with is that this game, if it's built the way that I think it's going to be built, is going to have a very large skill ceiling, right? And the gap between somebody who's brand new to this kind of game and the most awesome streamer on Twitch is going to be massive, right? And it's already, there's other games where that skill gap exists. League of Legends is a perfect example of a game that has a huge difference between a brand new player and somebody who's played MOBAs before and somebody who's playing at the LCS. Like, those are so different, it's even impossible to tell you. It's probably further than, like, Michael Jordan versus me. Like, the difference between Michael Jordan and me.
5 boots.
5 boots, you run real fast. So I just feel like there's... So we're talking about a game of the League of Legends style skill gap, right? That's what we're hoping, that kind of depth is available. But with that depth becomes a huge problem. How do you deal with not having players rage quit because they constantly fail against better players? I mean, obviously you can scale it down for the AI, but in a game where if they ever face other players and they don't have they need to take months to get good enough to even stand a chance against your average player.
Yeah.
I'm worried about that. Chasing people away, basically.
2 quick examples on this, or 2 quick bits to this I wanted to just throw out there. Squadron 42 teaches you the gameplay, and if people choose not to do it, buyer beware.
Yes.
And Minecraft. You want to talk about a thing that has a huge amount of a learning curve, that has a million things that you can do, that you don't get told how to do crap?
Yeah.
Look how successful that is.
That's true.
Yeah, but I think the main difference there is it's not really a PvP game, is it?
Have you played on public servers?
Yeah, but I would argue that the majority. I mean, it's a very obviously super popular. I mean, we know it sold millions or whatever different copies. It's made millions and millions for the guy. Didn't he sell? Yeah, he sold it for
Microsoft
to Microsoft, right? But how big was that number?
$4 billion. I think it was $4 billion.
Anyway, the point is, I'm worried about the fact that. So let's take an example. There was a really good extra credits episode, and this is a YouTube series. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it personally, but I highly recommend it. It is a number of game designers sort of working together to talk about game mechanics and game design and narrative design and player design and all this really cool stuff. One of the things that they talked about, they had an episode on the Noob Tube. For those of you that didn't play the more recent Call of Duties, I hadn't played it. I had to listen to their explanation because I don't play the Modern Warfare Call of Duties because 2 was the best and that's all there is to it. So here's the thing. In the original Modern Warfare, there was a gun that you got very early that had a grenade launcher underneath it that was fairly easy to get kills with. It wasn't the best weapon in the game, but it was a low skill, high outcome weapon. You could put a little skill into it and get a lot out of it. You couldn't get as much as the weapons that took more expertise, right? So it wasn't the thing that the best players used. It was the things that the new players used to do okay. And they wouldn't last against the good players. So is there some... And the point that the X Credits episode made was that you need something like this in your game, a single option for new players to latch onto that gives them a higher output for their input, but not as high as your highest, otherwise everybody would use it and be broken and nobody would like the game. But everybody complained about the Noob Tube anyway, and they called it a Noob Tube because it was a derogatory reference. So is there something like that in Star Citizen? Is there going to be a role or a weapon or a ship that is going to have a higher output for a lower input, but not be as good as a really good player in a Hornet, Super Hornet?
That's a great question, and one we'll have to see when we get there. We don't have enough at this point to say have they taken that into account. We know right now.
Or how do zones work?
Andrew says the noob tube are missiles. That might be right. That might be right.
But those are, you might be great with those, but they are, again, we covered it earlier, probably going to be more expensive than just using your guns. Early on in Arena Commander, the noob tube was the Omninsky 6s. You could hit like twice with those and kill any ship you wanted to. And then they nerfed them, and now they're back a little bit. And there you go. We're just, it's all about balance. It seems that some of the guns have a relatively easier to use than others to get a bunch of hits with and take out ships, but none of them are necessarily. There's none I've seen that have this really high skill area yet, and we'll just have to wait and see if maybe the mass driver becomes you get one shot with it, you better goddamn hit, and if you miss, it's going to be a minute before the next shot.
I'm sorry, the YouTube channel wants to correct you. Omnisky.
Whatever.
Not Omninsky. I think somebody on our TeamSpeak said Omninsky one time, and everybody just copied it. But yes, I think he's absolutely right. It's Omnisky. We should just go with that from now on.
Okay. Omnisky it is. Not too worried about it.
We are running out of time here, so I did just want to have a sort of final mention that we'll be back again in 2 weeks. So look for us on, let me see, that's not the 4th, but it is the 11th. The second week of January. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another show, and we'll probably have a lot more feedback about this and any other concepts or concerns that we weren't able to get to because we cut it short. I know normally we can go forever, but today we do have a time limit. So thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thanks, folks.
It was a good time, and I do appreciate hearing from you. And there's the hanger music. Wow, that took too long, and now it's too loud. So there we go. I am Bridger, and I am again, as always, joined by my co-hosts here. And thank you for joining us, Callie.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much.
Have a nice night.
And Gray, have a good one.
Have a good.
All of us here at Team Legacy wish you guys a happy holidays. See ya.
Bye.
All right, folks. Good talking to you. Got a bolt.
Yeah. You guys have fun. I'm going to not make it in time to do much climbing. So see you later.
All right. See ya.